March 5th, 2026. Donald Trump posts on Truth Social. Iran has been decimated. Our fleet will open the strait as soon as possible. Today is March 18th. The strait is closed. 150 tankers sit at anchor outside the entrance. Oil above $100 a barrel. Insurance companies refusing to write policies. Global energy trade paralyzed. 13 days since that promise. The U.S. destroyed 60 Iranian warships. Suppressed Iran's entire air defense network. Sank an enemy warship by torpedo for the first time since 1945, and the strait is still closed. Why? This is not a question of military power. The US has enough of it. This is a question of why military power is not solving this specific problem. Nearly 2,000 Iranian targets struck in the first 2 weeks of Operation Epic Fury. Missile capacity down 90%. Drone attacks down 95%. 60 warships on the floor of the Persian Gulf. Fordo nuclear facility hit directly by GBU-57 bunker busters, each weighing more than 13 tons. Iran's air defenses suppressed to the point where the US is flying non-stealth B-1 bombers over Iranian airspace without resistance. By any standard of military history, this is a destruction. But here is the question nobody is asking. What is underground? Iran prepared for this over 20 years. Tunnel complexes in the Zagros Mountains reach 80 meters deep, below the penetration limit of even the GBU-57. Underground hangars at Bandar Abbas carved directly into bedrock. Fast attack boats exiting through disguised hatches at the waterline. Missile launch sites camouflaged as civilian structures. Iran's doctrine since 2006 calls this passive defense. Move the threat to where bombs cannot reach. Known tunnels, struck. Suspected tunnels, struck. Unknown tunnels, untouched. Even the CIA uses the word presumably, not confirmed. Presumably. The Noor and Qadir missiles range 200 kilometers, launch from a tunnel, retract in 15 minutes, ready to fire again. You can only find that launcher when it fires. After that, it is back underground. How many launchers are still active? How many boats moved to shelters before the strikes? How many mines were pre-positioned before the operation started? Nobody has precise numbers. That uncertainty is keeping the strait closed. Not Iranian strength, Iranian ambiguity. The insurance market does not work with presumably destroyed. It works with confirmed safe. If this video is giving you facts, the news is not. Subscribe to Army Daily. We do not recap headlines. We break down equations. USS Abraham Lincoln, 90 aircraft on deck in the Arabian Sea. USS Gerald R. Ford in the Eastern Mediterranean. 6 Arleigh Burke destroyers in the Arabian Sea. 3 LCS ships inside the Persian Gulf. USS George H.W. Bush crossing the Atlantic. The largest American naval force in the region in 20 years. Question: why is none of it entering the strait? The Persian Gulf is 540 nautical miles of enclosed water, average depth 50 meters. Lincoln draws 37 feet and carries 100,000 tons of steel. Losing Lincoln is not a military setback. It is a catastrophe that reshapes the entire war. The Pentagon called it a kill box before the first shot was fired. Missile batteries and mountain tunnels along 1,500 kilometers of Iranian coastline. Fast attack boats in coastal inlets where radar cannot see around the corner. Mines on the seabed. Submarines in shallow water where sonar is nearly blind. Run the math. An F/A-18 launches from Lincoln 500 nautical miles away. Transit one way, over an hour. Round trip, over 2 hours. Standard combat load gives 3.5 hours total. Subtract transit, 40 minutes remain over the strait. 3 sorties per day per aircraft, and there are still gaps of hours in coverage. In those gaps, a mine-laying boat exits its cove. In those gaps, a Ghadir places a mine in the shipping channel. The narrowest point of the strait is 21 nautical miles. Shipping lanes, 2 miles in each direction. A destroyer in that corridor is a target, not a defender. Shore-based missiles at 10 kilometers give a destroyer seconds to react. The most powerful fleet in history is standing at the entrance and physically cannot open it. How do 7 people in a 29-meter iron tube hold 20% of the world's oil hostage? The Ghadir-class midget submarine. 29 meters, 125 tons submerged. Crew of 7. Built on a North Korean design. Cost, $5 million. Iran has roughly 20, all based at Bandar Abbas, directly on the Strait of Hormuz. 20 million barrels of crude transited Hormuz every day in 2024. At current prices, $1.74 million per minute, plus 20% of world LNG, plus nearly half of global fertilizer exports, $1.2 trillion in annual energy trade. One Gadir, $5 million against $1.2 trillion. Former Iran Navy Commander Rear Admiral Khanzadi said it directly. The Gadir does what German U-boats did in the Atlantic in World War II. Not for military victory, for economic strangulation, but the Gadir does not even need to sink anything. It just needs to exist in the strait. If a hostile submarine is operating in the area, insurance premiums spike. One burning tanker closes the route for months, regardless of how many warships are nearby. You do not need to sink a carrier. You need to leave port at night, transit 30 miles, and come back. That triples the insurance premium. A $13 billion carrier. A $5 million submarine. The carrier cannot enter the Gulf. The submarine is already there. After epic fury, CENTCOM confirmed strikes on Gadir bases at Bandar Abbas. Satellite imagery showed several units at the pier on March 2nd. By March 4th, gone. Underground. Or in the water. Lincoln's aircraft can strike any fixed target in Iran within an hour. But a Gadir is not a fixed target. 29 meters of hull in 50-meter water among hundreds of fishing boats and tankers. Radar cannot see it. Aircraft cannot find it. 7 people in a tin can. Every night, the Sadaf 02 mine, anchored contact mine, floats just below the surface. Hull makes contact. Detonation. No electronics. No guidance. Costs as much as a used car. Iran's stockpile. Between 2,000 and 6,000 mines. Small fast boats. Identical to thousands of fishing vessels in the Gulf. 2 or 3 mines aboard. Night. Into the shipping channel. Drop. Return. Less than an hour. March 11th. CENTCOM destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laying vessels. Trump posted, "Mines must be removed immediately." But who removes the mines already in the water? September 2025, 5 months before epic fury, the Navy decommissioned all 4 Avenger-class minesweepers from Bahrain: USS Devastator, USS Dexterous, USS Gladiator, USS Sentry. Over 30 years of service each. Wooden fiberglass-coated hulls designed to avoid triggering magnetic mines. These ships cleared over 1,000 Iraqi mines off Kuwait in Desert Storm. January 2026, 2 months before the war, loaded onto a cargo ship, sent to Philadelphia for scrapping. The replacement, 3 Independence-class LCS with mine countermeasures packages. Aluminum hulls, never combat tested. Internal Navy briefing described the unmanned systems as unreliable. Pre-deployment exercise off San Diego. Unmanned vehicle from USS Tulsa went out of control. Nearly crossed into Mexican waters. The mothership could not recover it. To clear Hormuz, the Washington Institute estimated 16 minesweepers needed. The U.S. has 7 in the entire fleet. March 15th, USS Tulsa and USS Santa Barbara photographed in Penang, Malaysia. 3,000 nautical miles from Hormuz. Navy confirmed no plans to recommission Avenger-class ships. Ships that could clear the strait. Scrapped in Philadelphia. Replacements in Malaysia. Mines in the water. Iran read American naval publications. Iran knew when the minesweepers were leaving. Iran timed this. What can Lincoln, Ford, 6 destroyers, and 3 LCS ships do about those mines? Nothing. A carrier cannot enter a minefield. An FA-18 cannot see a mine 50 meters underwater. Not one of the 2,000 plus munitions expended in 2 weeks of epic fury removed a single mine from the shipping channel. A mine costs $200. It sits in the water. It waits. No engine, no crew, no radar profile, just waits. $200 against $13 billion. The mine wins, because the carrier has nothing to answer it with. Here is who is actually keeping the strait closed. Not the Iranian military. London underwriters. Before the conflict, war risk premium for a Hormuz transit, 0.125% of vessel value. For a $150 million supertanker, $187,500 per passage. By March 9th, multiplied 4 to 6 times. Over $1 million per transit. P&I clubs suspended coverage entirely from March 5th. Without insurance, a tanker does not sail. Without insurance, a bank does not finance the voyage. The chain breaks at the very beginning. The historical precedent. Operation Earnest Will, 1987. First day of escorting Kuwaiti tankers. Supertanker MV Bridgerton struck an Iranian mine. American escort warships had no minesweepers. They fell in behind the damaged tanker and used its 401,000-ton hull as a minesweeper. 39 years later. Same strait, same mines, same missing minesweepers. The insurance market cannot be pressured by force. It cannot be moved by a presidential post. It responds to one thing: genuine reduction in risk, confirmed over time. March 4th, Iran announced strait closed to U.S., Israeli, and Western allied vessels. Not to everyone. To specific countries. March 5th, Chinese bulk carrier Iron Maiden transited broadcasting China owner. March 7th, Sino-Ocean. Turkish tanker Bogazici passed announcing Muslim ownership. Iranian forces let them through. Is this a blockade? No. This is a selective economic weapon. Japan sources 90% of its crude through Hormuz. Europe receives 12 to 14% of its LNG, primarily from Qatar. Gas prices in Europe up 63% in the first week. Nearly half of global fertilizer exports transit Hormuz. A food crisis does not begin when food runs out. It begins when farmers cannot get fertilizer for the next harvest. Meanwhile, China buys Iranian crude at 30 to 40% below market price, through the same water. Option 1, demand. China stop. China refuses. The U.S. cannot stop Chinese vessels without declaring war on Beijing. Option 2, route Western oil under a neutral flag. Public admission: the U.S. does not control the strait. Politically unacceptable. Option 3, open the strait by force. What Trump promised, what the Pentagon refuses daily. China moves cheap Iranian oil through a strait the U.S. cannot open for itself. U.S. allies pay a war premium, geopolitics packed into a tanker. March 5th. Trump. Our fleet will begin escorting tankers as soon as possible. Same day. Pentagon refuses first escort request. March 9th. Trump. U.S. will provide political risk insurance for all maritime trade. Same day. Lloyd's does not move. Premiums keep rising. March 13th. Hegseth. No clear evidence of Iranian mines. Same day. CENTCOM destroys 16 Iranian mine layers. Allies. France sent 2 frigates under Operation Aspides. 2 frigates for 54 kilometers of mines, submarines, and shore missiles. NATO declined to participate. When does the strait open? Weeks at best. Months realistically. Columbia University. Best European minesweepers are months away from Hormuz. Escort operations require 10 destroyers for a single convoy of 3 to 4 tankers. The resources are not there. Trump promised fast. The Pentagon says when the threat subsides, the threat is not subsiding. If this video gave you understanding the news is not giving you, subscribe to Army Daily. The next equation is already being built. Why can the United States not unblock the Strait of Hormuz? Not because it lacks power, because Hormuz is not a military problem. It is a layered equation where each layer requires a different instrument, and several instruments are broken or missing. 90% of Iran's visible arsenal destroyed. The remaining 10% is in tunnels 80 meters deep. Mobile launchers that fire and disappear. Nobody knows how many remain. The largest fleet in 20 years stands at the entrance. Carriers do not enter a kill box. Destroyers are targets in a 21-mile corridor. The LCS minesweepers are in Malaysia. Gadir submarines, 7 people, $5 million, make the insurance market unusable. Not because they are unbeatable, because they are sufficient as a threat. Mines on the seabed. Minesweepers in Philadelphia. Insurers in London waiting for zero risk. Chinese tankers passing through. Western tankers at anchor. Iran did not win this militarily. Iran did not sink a carrier. Iran created enough uncertainty across enough layers that the most powerful fleet in history cannot guarantee safety to a single tanker. The U.S. won the air war. The U.S. won the surface war. But Hormuz is not air and not surface. It is 50 meters of shallow water, $5 million tin cans, $200 mines, and London underwriters calculating probabilities. Iran spent 40 years building a defense against one variable: American steel on the waterline. They solved it and built a system that functions even when the defense is destroyed. Fear is embedded in the market structure. Uncertainty is encoded in insurance models. Those do not disappear when a factory gets bombed. The strait will open. The question is when. The cost of every day it stays closed: $1.74 million per minute. Iran did not win the war. Iran won time. For now.